Now starts the intense portion of this project. Let's go ahead and see if it actually fits. And we got to do this all in 45 minutes or we are screwed, guys. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong right now. I have always wanted to put a skylight in one of my van builds. I went full bore and found the biggest skylight I could possibly fit into our E350. And today we're gonna be installing it. This skylight is actually a Lumar medium profile marine skylight. It's meant for yachts and stuff. It's got this super thick acrylic face. Honestly, it's way thicker than I probably need for a van. And we're gonna be installing it onto the roof with a DIY Vans adapter. I've used these for every single MaxxFan install that I've done in the past. Strongly recommend getting one of these adapters. This shade is actually a huge part of the reason why I went with this exact model of skylight. This thing is super cool. First of all, it's flush mounted, so it's not gonna stick out from the bottom of the roof at all, really. This actually has the feature of a blackout screen built directly into it, which slides across, but you can also leave the skylight open, and from this side slides out a bug screen. So you have a built-in bug screen and blackout shade, which are gonna be flush mounted, so we won't be banging our head on it as we're crawling in and out of the van. I'll put links in the video description to both this adapter and the skylight itself, as well as any tools and sealants or materials that I use throughout this video. Let's go ahead and get cracking. So although we have a ton of space on the roof of the van where we're going to mount this adapter, we don't have a lot of play underneath where we actually need to cut this hole and ensure we're not cutting through the roof ribs. I actually think using this adapter is the right template to use for marking the hole to cut, since I know that the inside line here is the perfect size hole for us to cut out. Okay, I just came up with another idea that might give us a little bit more of an exact positioning. So since we're only doing the front to back constraints from the bottom up here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna mark 2 inches from the solid edge to the bottom of this little recessed piece of metal. We're basically going to drill 4 tiny little holes with a little drill bit, and that should give us the perfect front to back points that we can use to align from the top. I do still think it was worth it for us to do the outline of the adapter from underneath, because that gave us the reference point that we needed to know that we need to make these exactly 2 inches from the beams on either side. We've got our 4 holes from the bottom. Let's go ahead and start working from the top. 1 inch thick piece of insulation foam board, and then I'm going to put the plywood on top of that to try and distribute the weight and prevent any dents on the roof while I'm up there. Alrighty, so we are back on top of the van. I have simply set the roof adapter in, which these things always fit freaking perfectly, even though I requested this one custom from Hein. And it's gonna be pretty easy now, if you can see these holes that we just drilled through, to basically make sure front to back, we have the same distance between them. And then side to side, it centers itself. There's no measuring to be done because it has these knobs that fit directly into the ribs. We have also made ourselves a bubble of painter's material, taped it to the roof, to catch all the metal shavings as they come down. I'm actually really excited. I just discovered this new material. It actually sticks to tape really well. I'll put a link to this particular plastic sheeting in the description below. Okay, so now starts the intense portion of this project, which is cutting the big asshole in the top of our van. I've learned a good number of things about cutting big holes in the sides of vans. First things first, there's a couple of tools that make this job a lot easier and the end result a lot better. First thing is these jigsaw blades. These are particularly good for cutting into the sheet metal steel on a van. I'll put links to these blades in the description below. You want to use a high-powered jigsaw. You want to set your jigsaw to the fastest speed setting possible. Make sure you have a full battery if it's a cordless jigsaw. That fast speed is really important to prevent the jigsaw from catching and skipping across the face. And then there's a technique involved that makes this a bit better. I'm going to start by putting the jigsaw in. We're going to give it a 1% power to make sure that the blade is free going up and down. It is. And so now we're going to go from 1% all the way to 100% and basically start our straight cut with the first blade. Forgot to put my earplugs on. Anytime you stop, you got to make sure to do the 1% to 100% thing. There's 1%, we're good. All right, well, it looks like the iPhone overheated the moment that I was about to finish cutting this hole, but we did finish cutting the hole and we were able to kind of use the tape to pull the piece of sheet metal out. And then I yeeted the sheet metal all the way over there. Perfect execution. Okay, so to be honest, that jigsaw leaves a really, really clean edge. It doesn't need much deburring at all, but I am gonna put this carbide tip on my drill, set my drill to max speed, and I'm gonna do a little deburring here just to give it an extra smooth finish. Okay, let's go ahead and see if it actually fits. Okay, it does fit and it's perfect. We got about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch back and forth. I'd say this is the perfect fit. To cut the edges, I use this particular spray paint. I spray it into a cup and then I use a paintbrush to paint it onto all the edges. Okay, gonna let that paint dry for a few minutes. Okay, so next step is we actually want to attach this adapter to the roof permanently. So we're gonna start by just taping. This is how it looks with my little tape perimeter that barely extends beyond the edge here of the adapter. So we can take that off. Next step here, we're gonna take a Scotch-Brite scuff pad and we're basically just going to lightly mar the area that we're gonna glue the adapter down to so that it has better adhesion. And I do want to show you guys a little close-up of the marred surface, which is probably going to be really hard to see on camera. But I pressed fairly hard with that red Scotch-Brite pad. It feels slightly less silky smooth than fresh paint, but it definitely doesn't feel like sanded down or anything like that. So maybe that's a little bit better of a perspective since this one goes to the shiny and the marred there. We're basically going to put some more isopropyl onto this rag. We are going to wipe down this surface for the last time. This is Sikaflex 221. I'll put a link to it in the description below. I'm using the black color because I felt like that looked better, but they also make it in white. Oh God. I just realized this is not the black Sikaflex, this is the white stuff. So I know I have a couple bottles of 291 in black, which I believe is pretty similar to 221. I care enough about the color on this that I think we're gonna risk it and go with the 291 instead of the 221. But honestly, I recommend just using 221. This is what Hein also recommends. And then Hein recommends you put 3 beads that are about 1/8 of an inch thick. We're gonna try and do those relatively quickly because I think this stuff dries fairly quick. Let's go ahead and stick it down. Pressing it down along all the sides to make sure that that sealant gets 100% of the surface area. I really want this to be fully sealed, so I'm gonna put a bead of Sikaflex all the way around the outside. Now I'm just gonna go around with actually 2 gloves on one hand to get a nice line, and hopefully it looks a little bit better when it's done. It's time to remove the tape and give ourselves that clean line on the perimeter. And there we go. I'll show you guys a close up in a second once I clean some of the little droplets around that I accidentally got on the car. Okay, so this is what it looks like, freshly installed. I'll even do a little bit of a close up here for you guys. Came out looking pretty good. That was very stressful. I hate working with caulk in general. It's like my least favorite part of every van build because it's just so time sensitive, and if you mess it up, it's just an absolute nightmare. But I think for the most part, we can call this step done. Now we basically just have to let this dry for 24 hours so we can come back out tomorrow afternoon and work on the next step. So the next step here is going to be putting the Skylight into the hole, and we're going to drill some pilot holes where all the screws are going to end up being. On the MaxxFans, I'll just use screws and I'll screw them straight into the roof, but this one suggested using machine screws, which are basically just like tiny bolts. For machine screws, since they're bolts, you want to drill the hole slightly bigger so that they can slide all the way through. This should be the perfect size. It's about the same size as the factory holes. Okay, so I was able to take our trash bag down since we're done with all the drilling and cutting, and this is the first time I've been able to stand up inside my van. And I do have to say, this is like the coolest thing ever. I am 100% gonna use this while I'm camping. I don't know why, it's just so fun. My favorite thing is that we actually might be able to do the rest of this installation from in here instead of needing to go out, climb the ladder over and over again. We are going to scuff the surface here so that this glue hopefully sticks for a very long time. So we can't use Dicor lap sealant. The instructions for this Skylight say to use a bedding compound such as silicone and squirt it in here thick enough so that it kind of splurges out, similar to the adapter that we did yesterday. So we're basically just going to follow those exact same instructions, but for the Skylight. So we've started by taping the tops of the holes here so that sealant does not squirt all the way through and cause us problems in the next steps. All right, we got a little bit left in this tube from yesterday. Also, we tried to get a new caulk gun. They didn't have a 18-to-1, they only had a 12-to-1. Well, here goes nothing. That's more than the amount that we're probably going to need. This part's scary. Did I forget anything? I think we're good. Make sure the hinges go in the back. Okay, gotta take the tape off now. And we gotta do this all in 45 minutes or we are screwed, guys. Time to drop all the bolts in. I'm gonna do some nuts underneath because if I don't do nuts underneath and I put that thing back, this will topple over. I'm like, what is happening with this bolt? Because it's not coming through. Is it the right length? It's the right freaking length. What's happening? Oh. A lot of these bolts are not going on. They're not coming through all the way. I don't know. It must be a difference in the height of the adapter, where it's fitting with the roof. I really didn't want the bolts to be too long because then they'd stick out and it would prevent us from putting the adapter in, but I should have just kept the ones that I returned because I need them right now and I just don't have them. I'm just gonna try and get some nuts on the places we can get nuts on, so we can at least get a good clamp.
Are you gonna get new bolts tomorrow?
Problem is that this adhesive is gonna dry, and I don't know what's gonna happen.
Do you need me to go to the hardware store for you? What do you need?
So this is an M5 bolt.
I'm gonna grab my phone and make a note.
Run, please. Go to the stainless M5 bolt box. There's only one of them. It's on the far left side, and just get like 12 of them.
Text me if you need it.
Everything that could go wrong is going wrong right now. I got bolts on almost all of them. That actually turned out way better than I was hoping. I kind of just got one at a time and it pulled the stuff together enough. I've just given up on being messy, guys. Tools are getting covered and everything. Fan roof a little bit.
Hi.
I fixed it.
You don't need?
No,
You
I don't need them.
don't need them?
No. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I can do the thing now where I go around the edge, make a little bead. Now we can start pulling up the tape. So, situation now is that we're mostly good. It's a weeknight. I never drink on weeknights, but I might need a beer after this. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, so coming out the next day, I'm actually very pleasantly surprised. Now that it's done, this thing is super, super secure. This thing adds so much rigidity to the roof. Like, this is 10 times sturdier than just that bare sheet metal was. So the only thing that I'm gonna do now is basically one more layer of sealant around the dried layer on the outsides, just to triple ensure we don't have any entry points for water. And then I do need to figure out how to coat over the tops of these screws here. So we're gonna do a water test. We're gonna see if the car still fits in the garage. Then we're gonna take it on a drive down the highway and make sure everything is good. It is going to be very sad if this doesn't fit, because this is my plan for actually doing the van build during the winter. Dang, first glimpse here. I'm pretty sure we're gonna be good, guys. Okay, van is fully in the garage. Test number 1 complete. Very, very happy about that one. Test number 2, this one's very, very scary to me. We're gonna spray the van down and see if there's any leaks. Alrighty, we gave it a really good rinse. Very first impression, I don't see any drips on the ground, which is a very good initial sign. Not seeing anything. lots of extra caulking, but so far, there's a good reason for it. I think we can officially confirm 0 leaks on this thing. I'm pretty confident we got this thing sealed. Let's see if we can close this thing. Oh, latch 1, latch 2. Feels really sturdy. Doesn't rattle at all. This time we are going to do an official rattle test where I take this van up to speed and see if there's any noises coming from there, including wind noise or rattles or anything like that. All right, so going at highway speeds now. I'm pretty sure we're good. This is definitely one of the harder projects I've ever done, just because it had that acute challenge of using the caulk. I hate using caulk. I hate putting it on stuff. Anything that needs to dry, any sort of glue, even paint, not a fan. I try and avoid those things at all costs. If you want to see the rest of this van build, press the subscribe button below. We have lots more to come to turn this thing into a pretty luxurious little overlander camper thingy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. I also really like that it has this right here, which is basically the second little notch. It's a vent position, so it's open, but only slightly, just enough for a little bit of airflow, but it doesn't really move up and down. I mean, you wouldn't want to drive around like this, but you can leave it like this even in really windy conditions and it won't blow off or anything.